Alright guys, welcome to Hansen Speed Shop. Today I'm going to be showing you guys some tips and tricks on how to revive an old muscle bike, so stay tuned. Alright, so in the process of this, we're going to be using my old Sears Spider that I've had since back in the 90s when I was a kid. And I'm going to be talking about some things that you want to check over, look at, replace. When you pick up one of these old muscle bikes, either at like a garage sale, flea market, off eBay, swap meet, whatever. Just to make your experience with them a little bit better and a little bit more fun if you want to go out and ride these things at campgrounds, in the pits at the races, at car shows, or just, around town for fun. There's definitely some things on these bikes that need to be addressed because they are 40, 50, 60 years old, and depending on how they've been taken care of and stored, they're definitely going to need a little bit of love and some TLC, but they're pretty tough bikes and they're very easy to work on. So this bike we're just going to use as kind of an example to show you things you need to do. Now this isn't going to be specific to any bike or a how-to on anything, but just generalizations of what you want to look for and do, just because there's so many different models and makes. If you're not sure on anything, I would advise going down to your local bike shop and ask them or have them perform a service on it. But again, these bikes are pretty easy, straightforward to work on. If you have just hand tools and a little bit of mechanical, common sense, you can get through this easily. So the first thing that I want to talk about are tires. Now the tires on this bike aren't very good. They're mixed matched, and the back's dry rotted, front was dry rotted and blew out on a bike ride. So the first thing that we're going to look at on this bike are the tires. Now if you don't have a bike stand, just flip your bike upside down like this one, and especially if you just have like a stock height sissy bar, you've pretty much got a built-in bike stand ready to rock and roll. Also, when you got the bike upside down, you want to check if you just have a kickback or coaster brake. Spin the wheel, and then we're going to test our brake just by hitting the crank like that. So we do have a working brake. Now once we get weight on the bike, it's going to be a little bit different. Now to tear these rear hubs apart, it's not a super big job, but there are a lot of pieces inside of here. If you're going to take it apart, just take it apart and put each part in order as it came out. First thing though we're going to tackle are the tires. Alright, so this isn't going to really apply for show bikes or just pure display bikes, but if you actually plan on getting out and wanting to use these bikes, you're definitely going to want to make sure you have new tires on these things, just to be safe and to have fun. And if you're just planning on riding this bike, I recommend checking out Duro. I got these tires. They're a nice white wool knobby. These are literally like 11 bucks a pop. Super cheap. You can burn them up, do skids, whatever, and you're not going to feel bad about spending a lot of money. So definitely check them out. They got all kinds of different styles for old muscle bikes. Usually for the wheels, tires, we're going to need one wrench to take our nuts off, and then you're going to need a tire tool to get the tire off. If you don't have a tire tool, flathead screwdriver will work too. Just be careful to not pop your inner tube or scratch your rim up. Alright, so then got your wheel off, get your valve stem cap off, take your tire tool, let all the air out of the tire. Then take your tire tool and stick it behind the tire, and we'll get this bead popped out. And then you just take your tire tool, go around the tire, and get the whole bead popped out. Alright, so now that we got the tire off the rim, pretty simple to do, we got a couple of things that we want to check before we go any farther. Number one, do we have a rim strip? If you don't have one of these, you can get them online or at your local bike shop. They're usually like about $1 a piece. If you don't feel like doing that, just some black electrician tape, run it around the wheel, and then make sure you cut a little hole in it for your valve stem to go through, and it'll do the job just fine. Also, you want to check, make sure all your spokes are tight. Hold the wheel, spin it, make sure it's not super bent. With these old steel wheels, if they are really bent, they're pretty hard to get trued back up. You might have to get a whole new wheel if it's really bad. If you got some loose spokes, slightly bent, take it down to your local bike shop. Usually for not a lot of money, they can get it fixed up for you. Also, we want to check our bearing tension. By pulling on the axle, we shouldn't have very much end-to-end play. Basically, you don't want any, and you want this to spin real freely. If there is a lot, you want to tighten these up equally on both sides so you can get it as tight as possible but still have this spin freely. Also, I recommend taking this apart, cleaning your bearings off, whatever you have, carb cleaner, brake cleaner, and then re-grease them and then put it back together. There's really not a lot of parts in the front hub, so that's something I would recommend doing. Also, you want to check out your inner tubes. This one I know isn't that old, but if you take yours out, test it, see if it's still holding air, look for any rips. If it's got cracks, patches on it, just toss it. Usually pick up a new one for about $5, and it's definitely worth it because then you don't have to tear the whole thing back apart and go through this all over again. So I definitely recommend just getting new tubes, especially if you think they're pretty old. And then also another tip is I recommend wiping the whole inner tube down with like a nice tire shine or something. Then that'll just keep the rubber soft and pliable inside the tire and keep it from dry rotting. So that's basically our tires and wheels. Now we just got to mount them back up, and it's basically just the reverse of what we just did. The next thing that we want to take a look at is our bottom bracket, sprocket, and chain. Now this bike I've had since I was in like kindergarten, and this was an old bike when I got it, and I've ridden this thing through hell and back, and I've never done any maintenance or any work on this bike. That's just a testament to how well these were built and how tough they are. So what you want to check, like this chain, this thing will still get you down the road, it'll still do the job, but this thing's probably 50 years old. It's stretched out, it's rusty, the rollers don't spin very good, so we're going to throw a new chain on this. You can usually pick up a chain for $8 to $12, not a lot of money. Also, we want to check our bearing tension in the bottom bracket. You can usually do that by pulling on your crank. You shouldn't really have any movement of the crank pulling side to side. You want that to feel tight but still have this be able to spin around freely. Also, I would recommend, which I'm also going to be doing on this bike, is taking this apart, cleaning the bearings, inspecting them. If they're bad, you can usually just get new bearings for like $1 or so a piece. Or if the ones that are in there aren't too bad, just clean them up, re-grease them, grease your bearing races, and then put everything back together exactly the way it came out. When tightening it, again, you want to get the thing as tight as possible, but yet where you still have the thing spin freely and you don't want any side-to-side play. The last things, besides, we got 2 more steps that we want to do. Number 1, we want to go through and just check all the general tightness on everything that's going to really matter. So number 1, you're going to want to check these 2 bolts on the stem. This bolt for sure, which keeps the tightness of your bars. You want to make sure that's tight so that when you're riding, the bars aren't flopping around and you wipe out. But even more important than that, because the bars actually won't come off if this is loose, is this bolt right here. This holds the stem into your fork, and you want to make sure this is tight. Don't over tighten it or you'll break the piece inside of here that holds it. But if this is not tight and you give this bike to your kid or something, or even you maybe as an adult are fooling around trying to do wheelies and stuff, and this pulls out, you're going to be going for a ride and you're going to be hurting. So make sure that's tight. Also make sure if you turn the bars and it feels like it's grinding or it's not turning at all, there's probably 0 grease in here. Again, not a lot of components in here. Take it apart, put each part out the way it came out, clean your bearings, re-grease your bearings and your bearing race right here on the inside, put it all back together and you'll be good to go. You also want to check your seat clamp bolt, make sure that's tight, make sure the bolt that holds your seat to the seat post is tight because you don't want the seat to fly up. Make sure all your sissy bar bolts are tight, and make sure you have a bolt on your brake strap here, and you want that tight as well. Also, you want to check your pedals out. I know these things are old, they're rattly, and they're crappy, but they're still doing the job. And for now, we're just going to leave those alone. But again, those are maybe something you want to look at getting replaced. For originals, they're hard to find for specific bikes, and they can be very expensive, but there are other options for like lowrider bikes and stuff. They have the same kind of a look, and they're not a lot of money, so that might be something you want to take a look at also. The last thing that we're going to do with the bike to get it just more presentable is I'm going to go through and clean the whole bike up, polish up all the chrome, and then I want to buff this aluminum fender out on my buffing wheel, and I'm also going to be putting a different seat on. Usually the seats on these old muscle bikes is the first thing to go, because they take a lot of wear, they deteriorate, they crack. This seat I put on when I first got this bike because it originally had like a blue seat on that was kind of the same color as the grips, but it was totally roached out. And we got this seat for like 10 bucks, and it was better than the one that was on there, but I've never really liked the black. It doesn't really match the bike too well, so we're going to be putting on a nicer seat that kind of matches the look of the bike. So we'll take a look at the bike once I get it all done, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right, guys, so this is exactly why you want to tear this stuff apart. So first, take off your pedal, off your crank arm. Then you have a nut. On this particular bike, a nut, a washer with a little slot in it, and then another washer, and then this piece here. And then I'm just laying them out like exactly how they came out of the bike. And as you can see, this bearing is dry as F, and it's dirty and crusty. There's absolutely no grease in here at all. So we're going to take this out. I'm not going to get a new one, even though I probably would be smart to. But all the balls are in it, and it's not, I mean, once I clean it up, it'll be fine. And we're going to re-grease this, and this thing will pedal way easier than it would like this with no grease. Also just did the front wheel. That also had zero grease in it. Probably going to be smart to do the back wheel as well, but that's definitely something you want to do. Pretty simple. I think to actually pull the crank out, I'm going to have to take this screw off of the chain guard so that the chain ring will clear this to get it all, but not a big deal, but definitely something you want to do. All right, so as I've been talking about, these bikes are really built well, and they had really good durability, and this is perfect proof of that. So we cleaned up our bearing races and our bearings, and even after 50 years or whatever of no grease, these things turned out like brand new, and we'll be able to re-grease them and throw them back in the bike. Not like the cheap made in Taiwan stuff today that is garbage after 1 year and you can't even fix it or do anything with it but throw it away. These bikes, as long as you maintain them, they will last a long time. You want to make sure you clean the race behind your chain ring, the bearing races in the frame, and your bearings. And this is going to go for the same on the wheels also. So now all we got to do, grease them up good, and then throw the thing back together. Also, when you're reviving one of these old muscle bikes, don't forget the details. For just like a couple bucks, you can pick up these cool dice valve stem caps, get some the same color as your bike, and they really give a little bit of style and attitude, make your bike just that much cooler for not a lot of money. Also, this bike, since I've owned it for probably 25 years now, has never had a kickstand on it. It probably originally did, but it doesn't now. So I picked this one up on eBay. It's an old one off of, I believe, a Sears, and it has matching patina to this bike. This is like 15 bucks. So it's going to be money well spent, because I'm sick of throwing this thing down or finding something to lean it up against when you park it. We got our crank back in. Thing's spinning super nice now. Spend like, the 10 minutes or whatever to tear this apart, clean it, and re-grease it. It's definitely going to be worth it. Also, spend time on your front wheel. It's just going to make this thing roll that much easier and pedal that much easier, and faster equals funner. So keep that in mind. All right, guys, so we got the whole bike put back together now. All that's left to do is clean it up. For cleaning, This is basically what I'm going to be using on the white walls and on the seat. I like to use this bleach white. This is actually made for like doing white letters on car tires or white walls on car tires. It'll work just the same to clean up your white walls on your bike and anything else that's white, like seat or grips. Just some kind of tire shine. This is just like some cheap knockoff stuff, but it'll work just as good. Some chrome polish and some 00 steel wool for the chrome. And then one of my all-time favorite products is this Harley engine brightener, and you can literally use this on anything, chrome, paint, even on tires. I mean, literally anything, bare steel, cadmium plated stuff, and it'll shine it up and make it look really nice. And this is also kind of heat resistant, so it won't just burn off right away. Protects metal, so keeps your paint looking nice. Excellent product. It's kind of expensive, but it's literally like a gift from God. It's my favorite product. I usually like to use rags. We don't have any rags, so we're just going to use paper towel, and it'll do the job just fine. So we'll take another look at the bike once we get her all cleaned up. All right, guys, so she's all done. As you can see, she turned out really nice for just a little bit of time, elbow grease, and not a lot of money. You can take one of these old muscle bikes and get them roadworthy again for probably another 50 years before you're really going to have to dig back into it, because these things are super tough and durable. You can have a lot of fun with this. So as you can see, it came out looking really nice. I'm going to take it for a little bit of a ride now and see how our improvements and maintenance worked out. Alright, so right away I'm noticing that this thing's rolling way easier and pedaling way easier, which, you know, kind of why wouldn't it, since before it had zero grease. New tires seem to roll pretty nice, pretty quiet. Don't have a ton of squeaking or clunking going on. So I definitely would say that everything we did was well worth the work and a little bit of money that we spent. So now you could take this thing to your campground, car show, pits at the races, or around town just for fun. Not have to worry about breaking down or looking like a fool with a blown out tire. And you can actually have fun and enjoy this thing without, you know, creaking and pedaling hard down the road. So until next time, get out, work on your own projects, get your hands dirty, stay cool, and we'll catch you cats on the next one. Thanks for watching.